Welcome to our broadcast. When the late Sir Laurence Olivier selected its understudy at the National Theatre in 1967, Anthony Hopkins' career was launched and England celebrated its next great actor. But he was not to remain exclusively on the British stage. Across the Atlantic, he took on Broadway and Hollywood too. From the horrifying Dr. Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lamb to the graciously reserved Stevens in Remains of the Day, Sir Anthony infuses every role with a fiery intelligence. He possesses a rare combination of talents, placing him in a class of most honored actors, and we're pleased to have him here for this conversation. Welcome, Sir Anthony. Yes. This was what, last year, was it?
Well, yeah, earlier this year, yes.
Yeah. So honored.
Big surprise.
Yeah.
Yes, actually I knew about it before the end of last year, and you're sworn to secrecy. My wife phoned me up. She said, "You've been offered a knighthood." I said, "What for?" She said, "I don't know." But she said, "But they want to know if you'll accept it." I said, "Yeah, it was a great honor."
Yeah. Is this the best time of your life? I mean, Remains of the Day, now Shadowland, and following Howard's Inn, and before that, Silence of the Lambs.
It's the best time.
It is?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, it's all happened again unexpectedly. I mean, I had quite a good career for many years. I've been 30 years as an actor. Came over to America in '74, did Equus here. Right. And it was a successful production. I went off to Hollywood and did exactly what I wanted to do. All my dreams came true. I did some good films and quite a few bad ones as well, not so good. And about 10 years ago, I thought, well, maybe it's time to go home. I went back to England.
About 84 or so.
That's right, and I started working in the theatre again. I did 3 big plays, King Lear and Antony and Cleopatra, and another play called Pravda by David Hare. And I started resigning myself to the fact, resignation sounds rather negative, but I thought, well, maybe I'm just going to be a respectable British stage actor, fair enough. And then out of the blue came Silence of the Lambs, and the whole thing started over again. So I was a little bewildered, but very happy. I'm very, very happy. I'm having a lot of fun.
I want to talk about all of that, but let me talk about Shadowland, because it is, tell me about the 2 characters. This is a great romance, C.S. Lewis and Joy Gresham.
Yeah.
Tell me about these 2 characters and why they interested you.
Well, I'll answer the second question first. The script is an excellent script. Richard Attenborough, the director, gave it to me one afternoon. I was watching a film being scored that he'd done, the Chaplin film. Gave me the script. He said, "Read it." It was Shadowlands. I read it. It was a knockout. And I realized there was a very powerful, emotional part that I hadn't played in years. And I was just hopeful that I would be able to reproduce it, because I'm always playing these rather uptight guys.
Yeah, and this is a romantic hero.
Yes, yeah. I didn't know that much about C.S. Lewis. Anyway, we started the film, and I did a little bit of research on Lewis. I read a biography. What it is basically is about this true story, based on the story of his life. He was a brilliant professor of literature at Magdalen College in Oxford University. And he lived in a very enclosed world. He was the big cheese in his university. He was unpopular with some of his friends, and he was envied because he was a successful author. So he lived in a rather tight world, safe world. And in comes into his life in the 50s, this was back in the 1950s, comes this remarkable woman, an American, Joy Gresham, and she's like a force of nature, very powerful, challenging, boisterous.
We starts off with a correspondence.
That's right.
From her to him.
Yeah.
And she's sort of in a bad marriage.
That's right. She's married to an alcoholic in New York. And she is a great fan of his, because he's very well known in America, C.S. Lewis.
As a lecturer.
That's right.
And writer.
And she comes into his life, and she rattles him, because she rattles his cage, and he's never met an American woman before, and he's so confused, and things start happening to him. He starts falling in love with her, and he's then in his 50s, and he doesn't know what's happening. What's happening? He's never been in love in his life, and he's lived a very quiet life, and it just begins to devastate him. He's puzzled by what's happening to him, and his friends around him see that this change is going through him, and he gets very emotional about it. And he's never expressed emotion. He's a man in control. He's a real control freak. And finally, he marries her, and he marries her technically because she wants the work permit, and it's all very cut and dried. And then something happens, so I don't want to give the story away, but something very sad begins to happen. And it shakes him up, and he realizes that, and he wants to marry her properly, and they get married in a religious ceremony. And something devastating happens to her, and he is so overwhelmed, and it affects his faith, because he was a devout Christian. And in the end, there's a great triumph of the spirit. It's a great story, and he was a remarkable man. But for me, it was a wonderful part to play because I have to go through this tremendous emotional upheaval and catharsis, which Stevens in Remains of the Day doesn't go through.
Yes.
They're both wonderful parts to play, and
yeah, that's what I'm getting at. You're anticipating where my own head was going, my curiosity, which is good for me. It is that the challenge for you was that this is a man in evolution, who's clearly in evolution, and who some of the inhibitions are released by love, and he begins to take risk, and he begins to feel, and he begins to go through experiences. Stevens, in The Remains of the Day, a film that's gotten enormous, it's out and it's gotten enormously attractive and laudatory reviews, stays in the container, does he not?
That's right. He can't face his own emotions. He's locked in and chronically inhibited. He can't face anything.
Does that make the challenge of C.S. Lewis harder to play? I mean, easier or harder to play him in contrast to Stevens?
Well, it's relative, really, because both parts are so enjoyable. I suppose that Stevens was easier for me to play. I suppose the only challenge was the question mark in my own mind when we started on Shadowlands was whether I had the emotional reserve for it, because I hadn't used it. For a long time I've been, as my career, my acting techniques have become more minimalist and more economical, which is something I've worked towards, or it has been working in me unconsciously. So when I came to Shadowlands, I thought, I wonder if I can do this. The big catharsis scene, I thought, I wonder if I'm ready. But as we started the film, I could feel it. I could feel the power of it inside. It's such a great script. And in fact, what was encouraging for me and for Deborah Winger, who I think is extraordinary in the film, was Attenborough was there, avoiding sentimentality. Richard tends to be he's very full of emotion himself. And he said, let's restrain, let's hold back. And let's not show all this emotion yet until the great catharsis.
Does that mean you shot it in a sense as the film happens? So
no,
you had to show the emotion
backwards,
and then go backwards and forwards.
Yeah. But once you get the knack of it, once you get the technique of that, all you have to do is attune yourself to the changes. You know, you're filming out of sequence, and Deborah was very anxious to film it in sequence, but that's impossible. You can't because of the logistics.
Yeah. We don't have a clip from Shadowlands, but we do have. This is this is in fact a trailer, and we'll take a look at it, and here it is, and we'll see what it says, and so you'll get a chance at home to see the character and the quality of what we're talking about. Here it is.
So what do you do here?
Teach mainly.
What do they do? Sit at your feet and gaze up at you and all?
You don't give up, do you?
Now, I regard the soul as an essentially feminine accessory. Where men have intellect, women have soul.
She said what he could not say.
Are you trying to be offensive or just merely stupid?
I'm impressed.
Well, let's hope you stay that way.
Americans don't understand about inhibitions.
She saw
You've arranged a life for yourself where no one can touch you.
what he would not see.
Why are you getting at me? I thought we were friends.
She took him to a place
Joy, I'm capable of saying no. Do you want a demonstration? No. No. No.
he never knew existed.
I want to marry you, Joy, before the world.
A place within the shadows of his heart.
How could Joy be my wife? I'd have to love her, wouldn't I? I'd have to care more for her than for anyone else in this world.
I sat near you watching a screening of this film over the weekend. What's it like for you? What emotion do you have when you watch yourself on the screen? What goes through your head?
I think, who's that strange-looking fellow up there? Well, on this film and on Remains of the Day, I try to detach myself, and yes, I stay as detached as possible. But this one is a hard one to watch, because I don't like greatest displays of emotion. Maybe I'm closer to Stevens than I am to this one. But so I stay detached, but it's a hard one to watch, this one, because it's so emotional and overpowering. What I found about this from the other night when you were there, that's the first time I've really seen it in its finished final version. And I think there's great triumph in it, in the film, in the story. It's a film purely about love. and the power of love, the power of life, and actually the need to accept our mortality. Because if we don't accept it and deny it and run away from it, it will chew us up anyway, and it's something we all have to face.
And the accepting of it is a freeing experience.
Yeah, because then you accept it and then you can live life more richly. By realizing your limitations, then you're free.
Because there's a line in which she says, I think she says it or you say it, why give yourself to love if it hurts?
Yes.
Right?
That's true.
And
yes.
he comes to the notion that giving himself to love is
it's painful, and he doesn't, after his mother dies when he's the age of 9, he doesn't want to face any more pain. So he tries to chloroform himself, he tries to protect himself through his intellect, and of course...
a closed world of Oxford.
And suddenly his ego gets a tremendous battering from this extraordinary woman who comes into his life, upsets him, tears him apart, and he falls in love. Love reduces him, tears him apart, tears his ego down, and suddenly he's naked, you know, and he doesn't know how to cope. And then the ultimate thing that happens, he realizes how powerless he is. And that is the freeing of the spirit, I think. That is the real power of life. And when I watched it the other night, I don't want to get too sort of passionate about it.
No, I do. I want you
well,
to
yes,
go.
okay,
Yes.
but when I saw it the other night, I thought the music at the end is devastating. So, and I thought this is about the power of spirit, the power of life. And I think what if there's a lesson in it, or a message, or yes, a message, I guess, or a lesson, is that we have to pay attention. We better get on with our lives. Life is in session. This is it. It's not
And
a big
open ourselves to it, because
this is not a rehearsal. This is life's in session. We have to get on and understand each other and try and live compassionately, I think, and passionately and lovingly, because it's like that. We have no power to predict anything.
Attenborough, as a director, you've worked with him now 5 times. What does he bring to you as an actor?
Vigor, affirmation, love. He gets knocked by a lot of critics because they say he's insincere. He's the most sincere man I've met. I mean, he's an extraordinary man. He's manipulative. He's relentless.
In what way
he's ruthless.
manipulative?
Well, because he can charm you to do anything.
To take
I
risks?
call him,
take risks?
Oh yes, I call him the sly old fox.
Yeah.
But he can charm you into doing anything. But the thing is about him, he's a life force. I mean, he's 70 years of age, and he's so youthful, and he's affectionate with everyone. He treats everyone with courtesy and respect, and that's a rare gift.
Let me talk about acting, because you talked a moment there and you said the notion of being a minimalist. That you had come in your own career and through Remains of the Day, in a sense, to view acting as what worked best for you was to do what? To minimize what? You know what I mean? I mean, the question is it was almost like the smaller you could make it, the better it worked for you.
But generally, I mean,
yes, generally, yeah. I mean, why was this a step for you, this character of C.S. Lewis, because of where you had been in terms of acting?
It was a return, really, because when I was a younger actor, when I came here to New York in 1974 to do Equus, I mean, I used to sort of eat the furniture, you know. I used to big guy. When you're young, you can do all that stuff, and I was always a bit impressed by myself, thinking, God, this is good. And people seemed to like what I was doing and give me parts. But there was a great director I worked with. He's a pretty savage director called John Dexter. He's gone now. He's dead. But he used to shout at me to stand still, hold it, and be economical. Laurence Olivier said the same thing when I was working at the Vic. He said, economize. He said, because if you hit the ceiling all the time, the audience gets dull. They may as well go to the pub and get drunk next door. So he said, don't show too much, just contain. But I never understood that, and as the years have gone by, it's sort of it's happened for me. I understand that the less you show, the less is more. But you have to have the power or reserve inside. But the less you show, you let the audience do the work. And it's a trick, I guess, or it's something that came to me. But it's not even a conscious technique of... I just find it easier now to be still. And but with Shadowlands, it was like a return for me. It's like going back and thinking, oh, I can go back to that area of my life. I can go back to this emotional reservoir and use it. It sounds very conceited to say this, but, you know, I'm an actor, and I was just kind of mightily relieved when I found that I was able to tap back into that reserve. But it's just another interpretation, you know.
You have a reputation for acting by instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, actually, I suppose I'm a method actor.
Yeah, but you deny that, don't you?
I am a method actor, really. I have my own personal method.
Yeah.
But what I've simplified it now, and I absorb the text. I sort of absorb the text, take it in.
The script tells you what?
Well, the script is the script. I mean, all the information I need is the lines that have been written by Bill Nicholson or Shakespeare or whoever he is. There, put it into the computer, which is up here, which we all have, is the computer, and program it, put it in there, let it cook, let it gestate, and then when you turn up on the set or the stage or wherever you're going to rehearse or shoot the film or whatever, relax. That's the most important thing, to program yourself, is to relax and say, okay, no deep meditation, but say, okay, I'm relaxed. And then come on, and when they say action, let the part play through you. And I find that that is for me, the most surprising thing is that the character plays through you, through your instrument, your body, your mind, your psyche, and it filters through you and will take its own course. And what the fun I get out of it is, the real fun is never knowing what's going to happen next. And even on stage, if you're repeating a performance, you're not quite sure what's going to happen next. And I think that's what you have to do with the other actors. Keep it fluid all the time.
And also fresh.
Yeah, it's difficult on stage to do that night after night, but it's something you can aim for. Sometimes it's exhausting because you come to a point you think, I don't think I can find any more interpretations of this. But whether it's Shakespeare or Sophocles or Tennessee Williams or whatever.
Let me go back to Wales. Growing up there is said, what was your childhood like, and why was acting, in a sense, an escape for you?
Well, I had an idyllic childhood in one way. In one respect, it was a very powerful memory and image of it all. I've got almost total recall of impressions and images of it, of summers and beautiful summers. But as a child, academically in school, I was lonely and I was scared. I didn't know. I think perhaps I was dyslexic, maybe, I don't know. I was really stupid. Yeah. I couldn't keep up with people. So I felt much of an outsider.
But you had things you could do. You were a great mimic and things like that.
I was a mimic.
Yeah.
And I was a mimic. I could paint and I could draw and I could play the piano. But I was a bit morbid. I was a bit depressed. My father used to urge me to get out and make friends, and I could never have. So I think what happened, situations came along, and I was born in the same town as Richard Burton, who was then a big success. The local boy made good. And one day I thought, I want to do that. That's what I want to be. I just wanted to escape out of myself and become. So I became an actor. And in a way, I have to say, it's been a great therapy for me. It's given me a whole freedom. And it's been a sort of cure, in a way. It's affirmed for me that I wasn't, that life is good and that I can actually function and that things are okay.
Do you have some sense it's what you were born to do?
Was I born to do it?
Yeah.
I'm still a bit bewildered. I still never... And I'm glad of this, because because of where I came from and what I was as a child, I never, still today, don't quite fit into this profession. I feel like I'm visiting, which in a way it's
you
good
sort
for
of look
me.
at it. There's some sense that you look at it almost through a telescope, from a sense of detachment.
I still have that feeling, and I don't hang out with actors much. I feel that I mean, actually, I sometimes think, I wonder if they're going to find out that I really don't belong in this business.
But
now.
you don't feel that anymore, do you? There's a little voice there saying...
Not really, but the voice that keeps reminding me, I guess it centers you and keeps you grounded, which is good. That's good, because if you start believing your own publicity, if you start believing how good you are, and you start living that fantasy, then you can go mad and become a monster. And I think it happened, I suppose. For this time round now, in my second surge, or whatever it is, I feel very fortunate, very fortunate, because it's like a second chance at it. My life has been a bit like that, and sort of blessed in a way.
What's interesting about your life, to know something about it, is that you have been prepared at critical junctures to turn your back on what was obvious. You walked out of Macbeth, right?
Yes.
You didn't want to do any more Shakespeare, and you were then being perceived as, one of the next great in a line of great actors coming out of the London stage.
Yeah.
And you walked away from it. Why? What was it about?
I was scared, I was frightened, felt inadequate, I was rebellious, I was angry. I couldn't stand the British establishment, as that's how I perceived it. There was nothing, nobody was, there were no enemies. The enemy was in me, really.
What was the enemy, though?
Me.
In what way?
I was the trouble. I was discontented, I was neurotic, I was self-destructive and paranoid, like a lot of people in this business. But I projected it onto other people. It's their fault. So I finally walked out, and I turned around and bit the hand that fed me. I mean,
Yeah.
Laurence Olivier helped me a lot, but I turned.
Laurence Olivier did what?
He'd helped me a great deal, and people like John Dexter, and I walked, and I always wanted to come to America. And as the years passed by, I managed to get back in contact with those people and say how sorry I was for my bad behavior. But it was the best thing I could have done, because I had to get out of that environment. I didn't fit in, and I didn't fit in. Now I do. Now I can actually.
So when you went back to the National, to the theater in London to do Pravda, and then to do
and all that.
Lear and all of that, you felt comfortable there?
Not totally, but I did it as a bet for myself. I thought I had to prove to myself that I still had the nerve to get on stage and do it. And I went through a little bit of a bumpy time then. That was in recent years. But now I'm beginning to, even that's beginning to iron itself out. And I'd like to go back to the theatre maybe in a year or so and do something.
I mean, what's interesting to me is when you look at all this, when you went back and it was Pravda, it was King Lear, right. And you were on the top of the life in the stage.
Yeah.
During the day, you're going to the movies.
That's right.
And you're seeing Alan Parker's Mississippi Burning, and you're saying, God, I wish I was in the films. I mean, it's almost like once you get rolling and are at the top, you begin to say, I need something else.
I'm restless. The irony is, the weird irony was, I was sitting watching Mississippi Burning, I thought, and I was doing M. Butterfly.
Yeah,
the
that's what I was trying to think about.
Yeah, that was the one. And I thought, oh, I'd love to be in a big movie like that. And that afternoon, I went back to the theatre, because I always used to hang around. I went back to the theatre, and the phone rang. My agent said, I've got a film called The Silence of the Lambs. I thought it was a kiddie's bedtime story, Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
And he sent the script over, and Jonathan Demme came to see me, and I said, that's it. And so that happened, and that started a whole new
a new cycle.
run for me.
A new.
And the ironic thing is that I'm going to work with Alan Parker on my next film. And,
This is a film that you're
The Road
doing?
to Wellville, yes.
Yeah,
and
in filming in North Carolina.
That's right, yeah.
Now you just finished. Didn't you just finish something? What have you just done other than Shadowlands? Was there another film that I
did a film called I Would Play a Cowboy.
Yeah, that's right. You were a cowboy. It filmed in Canada, was it?
Yes. Legends of the Fall with Brad Pitt and Aidan Quinn and Henry Thomas. Good.
Let me go back to London the first time when you come there and you walk on for Sir Laurence Olivier. You're what? How old are you? 20-something?
26, I think.
26, yeah. And he, what was the play? Dance
of Death. I went on for him, yes.
You went on for him.
Yeah,
and you were his understudy, and you went on for him. And then he later wrote in his memoirs that, I mean, you were incredible. I mean, there was clearly an actor was of extraordinary, whatever he said, something like a cat with a mouse in his mouth is what he said in his memoirs. Did you know that?
No, I was so scared. Yeah. I went on stage that night. I can't remember much about it, and they said, you've got to go on tonight for Sir Laurence. I said, I can't.
You said, I can't.
I said, I can't do it. They said, you're going on.
This is why we pay you.
And we were built the same size, so his clothes fitted me. And I was terrified, and I went on, and it was like I was on automatic pilot. And I got through the show, and the audience seemed to respond, and at the end of it, all Robert Stevens and Gerald McEwen said, that was fantastic. I was like in shock. And the audience stood up and gave me a big round of applause. But I wasn't really there. I got through that on some kind of fear motivation. There was one point, actually, and I had to walk across, at the beginning of the play, I had to walk from this point of the stage across, then pour myself a drink. Yeah. And that's the worst thing, when the bottle shaking. Yeah. But I was detached from it, and I kept looking at the man in the front row, and I thought, I'm going to tell him to go home. I'm going to tell him to go home. This is crazy. But I can't do that. And at the same time, the lines were coming out of my mouth, and I was pouring this whiskey and all that. And I looked at Gerald and McEwen, and she was still looking at me, because I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah. And Sir Laurence Olivier was in the wings.
He came,
even though he was sick, he came there.
He came out of hospital to see me.
To watch.
He stood at the back.
What did he say after the performance?
He phoned me up next morning. He said, I saw you last night. Yeah. I said, you did? What were you doing out of hospital? And he said, well, I saw you. He said, you are very good, baby.
Yeah. What influence did he have on you?
Oh, tremendous. He was one of the most courageous actors I've ever seen. He was a titan, a great actor. He went through a time when it was unfashionable to like him because he was kind of over the top, great. But he was one of the great great actors of his generation. I mean, a mighty actor. His style of acting now is, with Henry V and Richard III. I mean, a colossal actor. I think a real genius.
The best.
The best. He and Gielgud and those two. I mean, a real genius, an extraordinary man.
And go ahead.
Sorry. And a great man. He liked young actors, And he liked strong. He liked physically strong. He'd say, you know, because he used to have to go to the gym and build up muscle because he always wanted to play with the big parts.
Yeah.
And if you were naturally muscular, he'd say, that's good. He said, develop that, you know.
Physical.
Yeah, and he said, and he had no time for people who were lazy, and he'd say, stay in training, stay fit.
Yeah.
And he used to lecture us all. He said, stay fit, you've got to be healthy. If you're not healthy, you're finished. He said, you've always got to be strong and fit.
He also, there's the story that he told you were a little bit tough on directors.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was during that period of your life in which you were raging.
Yeah.
And he said, what, ease up? What did he tell you? Did he tell you to ease up or?
He said, you can't go on like this. He said, who are you fighting?
Yeah.
I said, he said, no, he said, you're fighting yourself. He said, and it's a dead end. He said, you can't go on fighting yourself. He said, you'll destroy everything that you've got in your life. He said, you're crazy. And it was then I left the National Theatre and walked away. And a few years later, I met him. We were doing a film together, Bridge Too Far, another Richard Attenborough movie. And I saw him. He said, I'm glad you're better. He said, and that's the first time we shook hands. He said, I'm glad you've got through your problems, whatever they were.
There was a period in which you were drinking a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
dull periods of my life.
Dull period. What do you call it? The dull period. Yeah.
It's over and done with now. But yeah, I got to a point.
It was over some 10 years ago, wasn't it? I mean,
18 years now.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this is a point of no return. This is a dead end, and I better stop. Because I think it's not, I didn't feel too well, so I stopped.
Yeah, but you almost stopped going close to your birthday. You stopped in the United States. Weren't you here living in Los
California,
Angeles?
Yeah, it was an interesting period. I don't want to go through it again, but I wouldn't have missed it. I've lived 2 lives, and I had some fun with it as well. But I don't miss it.
Have some fun with it, meaning what? That you?
Oh, I had some rare old times here in New York.
Yeah.
At Charlie's down in 40. I had some good fun with it. But in the end, it got a little bit kind of irksome. I was a bit of a nuisance.
You've always liked America.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the stories that you can, just get in a car and drive is a great passion for you.
Yes.
To soak it up.
Well, I was raised during the war years, Second World War. I was born in 1937, and we were, towards D-Day, a lot of Americans were in our town and around, and so I had the powerful impressions of Americans. And then post-war years, I went up to London on a holiday with my parents, and it was full of Americans. And I liked the noise they made. I liked the kind of energy and the green uniforms and the money and the smell of cigars and all that. And I thought they were so romantic. And I was brought up in American movies, and I became obsessed with America from a very early age. My father bought me some encyclopedias, and this morning I was having some photographs taken downtown in the village. And I used to, and in the background was the Empire State Building. When I was 4 or 5 years of age, I used to look through these photographs of American skyscrapers, and I knew that the Empire State Building had 102 stories, and I was obsessed. My father said, why is he obsessed with all this? Yeah. And I think really it was like a target in my brain. I wanted to come to America, and there was a dream that came true. And so I feel very at home here, and I drive a lot. It's like I just love it.
Could you ever come back here to live?
I don't think my wife would allow that. She loved it. She liked it here, but she's more sort of English than I am, and I'm Welsh. And we live in England now, and I've got a home here also in Los Angeles. We sort of live in both places. But I always feel at home here. When I came to New York in 1974, my first day of rehearsal, I was walking down the street towards the rehearsal room, and I thought I'm at home, the steam coming out. I thought this crazy city, the steam coming out of the roads, smell of hot dogs and hamburgers. And I knew I was at home.
And then when you moved to LA, after that?
Moved to LA.
Yeah, and you liked California as well?
Yeah, I loved it. I couldn't believe, man, driving down Benedict Canyon, the palm trees, I thought, my Welsh guilt came out then. I thought, I shouldn't be doing this, and I thought, to hell with it. Just enjoy it.
I'm going to enjoy this.
Yes, I thought,
I'm here. This is a bit of my life I'm going to enjoy.
Yeah, going up to Malibu and with my friends and having some fun.
You don't have any guilt, though, do you? Now?
Oh.
Yeah.
I know, not now. I used to be Welsh guilt, Jewish guilt, the same old thing. Yeah.
What was it?
Oh, I don't know. Fear, Puritanism, I guess.
Yeah.
No, I don't feel guilty now about things. Just get on with my life and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Have a ball.
Was there any sense that the period before you went back to London in 1984, that you were dissatisfied with the American period? I mean, the films, some good films, some bad films, but that it would become a kind of hollow time for you?
No, I wasn't dissatisfied because I was very reluctant to go back to England. Except I was sort of prevailed upon by sort of advisors or friends. My wife and my agent said, I'm friends in California. They said, there's not much around. I wasn't getting that. I mean, I didn't expect to get first choice of scripts. I mean, Robert De Niro, you know, because I'm British, and why should they give... So it wasn't a sense of bitterness I left. I just thought, well, maybe it is best to go back to England, because I was getting offers in the theatre and offers of British films. And I thought, well, maybe it is time to go home. And I was reluctant to go home, back to England. And I remember locking up the house on the night we sold it, and the hummingbirds were outside in the garden. I thought, I must be crazy. What am I going back to that misty, foggy, raining country for? But we did, and I'm glad it happened.
Yeah. Pravda was the first play that you went back to, and that was a huge success for you.
Yeah, that was a big hit.
And when that happened, did you feel renewed? Did that reinforce your instincts to come back?
Yes, but
you found something else.
Yes, and it was a good period, and I've enjoyed it being back in London, and that's where my home is principally. But I get a homesickness for America, and when my agent phones up or whoever says, "Can you come over to America?" I say, "Yeah." Well, give me the ticket, and I come.
Yeah. Well, after you came back and did M. Butterfly and during that kind of thing, was there a sense that you were settling in to just be on stage, that would be the life for a while? I mean, you were going to the movie saying, "I wish I had a movie," but did you say, "My God, you know, it's not going to happen. This is going to be, I'm going to be a stage actor, and I'm going to do Lear, and I'm going to do all those things that I want to do, but I'm not going to be a film actor"?
Well, I've always been a bit of a rebel. I mean, I was always told, you know, you're back where you belong in the stage. And I said, oh, yeah. I thought, God, I've got to make a movie. I wanted to get out again. I'm always a bit like that. I'm very restless. And I've got the best of both worlds. I can work in the theatre. But I just wanted to travel. I love moving about.
Have you carried with you a kind of burden of having, or at least of the weight of people expecting great things from you because of what you had done on stage? And was that a factor? Did that play on you? The next Olivier, you know, the great tradition of, well, Burton, you and Burton from the same hometown.
No, I didn't find the burden. I was kind of flattered that they compared me to those people. I was embarrassed at the same time. No, I didn't feel a burden. Not at all. No, quite simply.
I want to talk about some of the characters now because you were in such a rich period. Remains of the Day, we've talked about Stevens. When you look at him, what was the challenge there to play this character?
Well, it was a very good script and an interesting look at life through a butler. A butler is a very rare species of animal now in Britain, you know, and certainly in America. No, they don't. I don't think. I like the focus of it, about loneliness, about regret and loss, and missing the boat, where he actually could have had a life with this woman and didn't face up to it, not because he was stupid, but because he was scared, he was frightened. Yes, it was a challenge, I suppose. It was a very enjoyable part to play. Somebody said to me the other day, "How did you play it?" I said, "Well, I just spoke quietly and walked around quietly."
Yeah, but you know what Emma Thompson says? She says, beneath those blue eyes, there is rage and a lot of other things going on with you. Yes. Oh. That it's all there, that you know it's there, but it's contained because of the things you just said.
Yes. Well, I suppose it's, sublimating it. And yeah, but the challenge really was just, it really wasn't a great challenge. It was enjoyable. And I'm having such a run of good fortune at the moment that I enjoy it all. Like Silence of the Lambs was another challenging part.
But much deserved. I mean, in a sense, you can accept it all now with great celebration and enjoyment, can't you?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
If not,
yes,
somebody should take it away from you.
Celebration. Oh, no, I don't knock it at all. No.
Okay, roll tape. Here's this Remains of the Day, a Merchant Ivory production. Here it is. Wow. There's so much to talk about, and we're out of time, and I'm pleased. Will you come back? And
Yeah.
We'll do part two and
Sure.
catch up and talk more. There's much to talk about in terms of Shakespeare and the whole evolution. And this story, and just tell me a moment about it, and we'll come back to it. You get the Oscar for Silence, and they announce your name, and you're walking up, and you think about your father, Dick.
That's right, yeah.
And what were you thinking?
I thought he died 11 years ago tonight. Weird.
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
I hadn't thought of it. But it was a good night that. It was the most exciting night of my life. I had a good time with that.
And it just changed everything because of the acceptance and success of that
yeah,
film.
Yes, it did. So let me off the hook a bit. You know, I just felt more relaxed about things after that. I thought, well, now's the time to really enjoy it all.
And do you think somehow it might have made you, contributed to your capacity as an actor to be more relaxed?
Yes, I think it does. It's a whole principle of life. If you're relaxed, the chances is that good things will come to you. Yeah. If you're uptight and, you know, I think you frighten things away if you're constantly aggression and uptight.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I look forward to part two.
Thanks
Thank
a
you
lot.
very much. Sir Anthony Hopkins. We'll be right back. Stay with us.